Hi, everyone. Ivana Taylor here, coming to you from DIY Marketers and our Monday edition of Bizapalooza Chat. Now, bootstrapping is the default funding strategy for most small business owners. But what do you do when it's time to grow out of bootstrapping your business? Your business is taken off, orders are coming in, and you're ready to scale and grow that business to the next level. I'm Ivana Taylor. I'm the publisher of DIY Marketers and the host of Bizapalooza Chat. Today, we're going to be talking about how to get and spend money for high growth marketing. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Kabbage, an online financial company that provides funding directly to small businesses. Check them out over at kabbage.com. That's Kabbage.com. Their site is loaded and so user-friendly. There's all kinds of calculators and really helpful tools specifically that will help you spend your marketing dollars. And don't forget to follow them over on Twitter. They're super active at Kabbage Inc. So at Kabbage Inc. Now, our special guest today is Michelle Lisowski, head of brand and growth for Kabbage. And she's here to give us a primer and share her best strategies and answer all of our questions about how to get money to spend on your marketing dollars. Thanks for being with us, Michelle.
Absolutely. Thanks for inviting me.
Now, marketing is a bit of a chicken and egg problem. I mean, you need customers to make money and you need money to do marketing so you can get customers. It's like this never ending cycle. Let's start with the question of what are some of the triggers that lead small business owners to borrow money for marketing?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, the trigger moments really align to how we're seeing customers using funds. And one of the great things about Kabbage funds is you can really use them for anything, but there are a ton of use cases that really stand out. And seasonality is also a part of that. And we see this with different industries is that they're borrowing money at very specific times of year. So first, we're seeing funds being used oftentimes for inventory, and this really aligns with the retail industry. So we're seeing about, August to October, retailers are really stocking up on inventory, preparing for the holiday season. But then we're also seeing them coming back and pulling funds kind of in late winter, kind of February, March timeframe during their slow season. We're also seeing, the construction industry is also very cyclical. But a use case for the construction industry that we see often is payroll. So we have, a great concrete construction company out of South Carolina. They're a 4th-generation concrete company. One of their biggest challenges is manpower. If they are not covering payroll, paying their crew every Friday, they're not going to show up on Monday. But this is a challenge because often there's 30, 60 days, even 3-month lag to actually getting paid by your clients. And they have to cover payroll during that time. So they're using, Kabbage funds to pay their crew and make sure they show up for work the next day. Another trigger is really kind of the marketing advertising use case. We see this time and again with our small business customers, and it aligns really well to the topics today. We have a customer, Wet Shave company, that is an e-commerce business, and they have used Kabbage funds to redesign their website, update their branding. And, we also see various small businesses using their funds for advertising. So Google, Facebook, using it to find new customers. So it's really a combination of, inventory, payroll, investing in marketing and advertising. But then we also see kind of throughout the year, these seasonal effects on various industries.
I'm so glad you shared those examples because it doesn't, it seems like the whole borrowing money or getting funding, those types of money conversations, it's one thing to have them, but it's a whole other one to know exactly how small businesses are using them. And I think in the case of the marketing example that you gave, how does, the thing with marketing, everybody knows, right? We like to talk about it as an investment. I'm all for it, but let's be real. It's money out of my pocket today on usually some promise that I'm going to get something back tomorrow. And those promises, I know a lot of small business owners I talk to have been very, very disappointed. So it's kind of risky. So how does a small business owner know or how do they evaluate how much to borrow so that they can, stay in good standing?
Yeah, and this is never a straightforward answer. One of the biggest things any business can do before borrowing for anything, whether it's marketing or any of these other kind of use cases, is to have a plan. And we've been hearing this more and more recently from the customers that we talk to, but it's important to have a plan. And that might seem really obvious, but you don't want to get the money and then figure out what you're going to do with it. So sit down and really think through kind of what your needs are. But from a marketing perspective, part of it is starting small. And I think whether you're a small business, a 1 or 2 person company, or if you're working for a major corporation, it is no different. Test. That has always kind of been my motto as a marketer, is kind of test and iterate and learn as you go. And once you can prove something out, then you can invest further. So I think the first thing you want to do is have a good hypothesis, think about kind of where you want to invest in advertising, and then start small and see how that goes. But the other piece of it, especially when it comes to digital advertising, is tracking. And it seems so simple, but it rarely is. Even, at big companies, you talk about, data and being able to make decisions. But I think the reality is it becomes very easy to make a decision when you have that data. The hard part is actually getting that data and getting the tracking set up. And so I couldn't emphasize enough that if you're going to invest money, make sure you have not just a way to measure it, but you understand what success looks like. Are you paying to have people pick up the phone and call you? Are you paying to just have them go to your website and learn more about you and maybe sign up for your newsletter? Or do you want them to make a purchase or come to your store? So you have to think about kind of what your marketing goals are, how you're going to track them. And then you have to understand the value of it. And I think that piece is really hard too, is how much do you value a phone call? How much do you value foot traffic? But you have to think through that, because when it comes to ROI, you have to know what you want your return to be. So you have to know what that is worth. So I just say, to summarize, you have to be able to track, know what you want to track and what you care about, and understand what it's worth.
I think that's great advice. And, it's something any business should be doing anyway. And I have to say, as someone who's very value conscious on the marketing side of things, I'm all about starting small and making sure that you're knowing what you're getting into. And, that's one of the things that, as I was even writing the article for you guys recently, I was stopped for so long because I honestly saw it as a big, big, big responsibility to tell people where to invest their money in marketing, and to know that to invest it haphazardly, as you said, don't get the money and then figure out what to do with it. Right. So and maybe it's because I'm acutely aware of the risks involved, that if you don't jump into something full out, you're liable to get in trouble. I don't know if you want to speak from the data of your small business customers, or maybe what you've seen in general, but what are, from your guys' perspective, or maybe from the small business owner perspective, what are those risks that are involved in borrowing money? My scariest one is, I'm going to borrow money to sponsor a trade show or something, and it's a flop.
Yeah. That's
very scary. How do you talk to your customers about those risks? What are the typical risks, and how do you talk to them about that?
I mean, the one I couldn't emphasize enough, what I said before with trying to mitigate risk is starting small and testing something. So before you invest in 5 trade shows, start with 1, see how that goes, and kind of, and take baby steps. Another part of it is really having to sit down and think about kind of your broader financial plan. So one piece, I had mentioned, sit down and have a plan for how you're going to use the funds. And part of that is understanding what's the time frame in which you want to pay it back. So part of the risk is you don't start, recouping those funds or seeing a return, but you have to start paying back that money. So one is a time frame. Kabbage offers 6 and 12 month lines of credit. You have to make sure that that's right for you. Maybe you need a longer time period. Maybe you want a shorter time period because you're looking at this as a very short-term investment. So you have to understand kind of your cash flow when you're looking at risk, because that's really what's going to dictate paying it back. Another piece, and Personally, I don't think this is just for businesses, but, I think about this in my personal life as well. But I like to do worst case scenario planning, which is, if this doesn't work, what is my backup? If this doesn't work, do I have any way to pay back these funds? And, that really starts to get into how leveraged are you as an individual or as a business. But I don't want to be doomsday about it, but I do think it's important to think through that worst case scenario and how you might manage it.
Now, I know the other thing we wanted to talk about, but before we get to that, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, how do I say this? It seems like you guys really do support small businesses. And one of the things I really liked about the site was, for example, there was a marketing ROI calculator, I think, that said, if you want to borrow this much money, how long is it going to take? How many customers do you need to pay it back? Right? What are some of the other ways that you guys sort of take care of small business owners, sort of to, make sure, right? Because I don't think it works for you if they fail.
Yeah. I love this question because it's one of the things I love best about Kabbage, which is that they are truly, as a company, invested in small businesses, but not just from a product perspective. Certainly we're trying to make a product that's going to work for every small business, but we also are invested in their success, and we want to be offering them tips and tricks for everything from how to do marketing to how to, redo your menu if you're a restaurant. And so we create a ton of content to help small businesses. And if you go to our website, we're constantly writing articles within our blog, talking about tips and tricks, whether it's, again, from an industry perspective, if it's on sales and marketing, if it's just how to run your business. So we invest a lot in content. We talk to our customers a lot. One of our, Kabbage has done that for years in a, I'd say, less formal way. One of our big focus areas this year is to tell our customer stories more, because I think exactly what we're doing here. Small businesses want to learn from their peers, and that's typically who they go to learn from. And so we want to tell our customer stories, not just to tell them how they're using Kabbage funds, but really just how they're using funds. What are the problems they're facing? How are they using Kabbage funds or other resources to overcome some of those challenges? So in addition to our blog, we're really building out the customer stories that we're sharing on our site. And then finally, I think, there's a lot of education around just making good financial decisions. And that's other content. We have a lot of content like that on our website, but it's also something we're thinking through and want to share more and more, is kind of, even outside of borrowing, how do you think through your finances and make sure that you have, a really viable business, especially before you start borrowing. Those are good. It's really important to understand that. And understand then, when you are ready to borrow money, kind of what kind of loan is going to be right for you.
I started this conversation. It was an insight that I had. A lot of small business owners wear bootstrapping as a badge of honor. And as I was doing some research and really looking into that, hey, I'm all for about getting a good deal and a good value. But you noticed I said in my intro that, at some point, bootstrapping can only take you so far. Right? At some point you have, and you mentioned some great examples about people, needing to make payroll and that type of thing, So what is it that you have to say to small business owners who are wearing that bootstrapping badge as a badge of honor? In what ways is it good? In what way, what are some of the advantages and disadvantages? And, I don't know if that's going back to when is a time to borrow, but do you know where I'm getting at with that question?
Yeah, sure. We've been telling some stories lately around the hustle of small businesses. And I really like that because I think about that as kind of the bootstrapping side of it, right? Is just being persistent and being scrappy and figuring out how to get stuff done. And I think that hustle also comes from the passion of a lot of these businesses. And I don't think that's something a business would ever want to lose. And so I think there's a side of the bootstrapping that's really important. And it's like what sustains individual, on a personal level, what sustains individuals, but also what can sustain a business. I think like all things, there's a balance. And so you have to find that balance between, how long am I going to do this in a really scrappy way? And then, what's going to be my tipping point? What's really going to take my business to the next level? And I don't know that there's kind of a magic bullet for when that happens. I do think often small businesses get to a point just from a size perspective where they as an individual can only stretch so far. Their employees, if they have them, can only stretch so far. So I do think kind of size, but then growth. We talk to a lot of customers who are in hyper growth mode. And that's actually one of the stages in which we see people starting to borrow money a lot, because they are kind of growing faster than they can keep up. And they're growing fast and bringing in revenue, and just a really positive thing. But you can't necessarily keep up. And that kind of hyper growth mode is what it is another trigger for pulling funds. But I think it also kind of tells you that you're to that point where maybe you can't bootstrap it anymore. And you have to find solutions that are going to be a little bit more scalable. You can't be the only one, answering the phone, or you do need a website now, because you need a way for people to kind of self-serve, but get the information they need. It could also be the time where you start to say, I have to put my best foot forward from a branding perspective. And, I have all these people coming to me, but I want, you want to build the business brand and coming back. So, I think, certainly growth is one of them. But again, I just kind of go back to, I think that there is a hustle and a passion with small businesses that you never quite want to lose, no matter how big you get.
I love that answer. Now, a little bit ago, you talked about how Kabbage has used digital marketing to really connect with their customers and to grow your brand and your business. So that's been successful for you. Now, what are some ways that you think, or why should another small business invest in digital marketing? And I'm going to have to keep my mouth shut on that one.
Sure. Well, a statistic that continues to surprise me is that over a quarter of small businesses do not have a website. And, I get why. I have small business owners in the family. I'm married to one. He doesn't have a website, to my chagrin, but, I have to pick my battles at home. But it's so important for so many reasons. First, that's where consumers are. A majority of consumers, almost 90%, are looking online. And even if, I think a lot of businesses might think like, well, I have a physical space. I'm not online. I'm not an e-commerce company. That doesn't matter, because behaviors have changed, patterns have changed, the way people consume and find information has changed, and they're looking online. And not only are they looking online, but their expectations are that they're going to find you online. And when they don't, I think that there's a brand moment there. So it's not just that they can't find you and get information to even talk to you, but maybe they've heard of you and they've gone online to find you, and they see that you don't have a presence. And I think that there is, a legitimacy that comes with having a website, and having that presence online. So first, that's where consumers are. With online really becomes mobile. And this has to do with kind of the shift in behavior. Literally, people are either conducting business or conducting kind of personal needs from their mobile phone from anywhere. They are out on the street and they are searching for, a pizza place nearby. And you want to make sure that they can find you. And I think that is one of the big, those are the two big things I always talk about when it comes to digital marketing, which is one, you need to make it easy for them to find you. And two, you need something for them to find, and you want to put your best foot forward with that web presence. So that means, for them to find you, people are searching on Google, they're searching on all the major search engines. And to the point on mobile, it's been a few years now. I want to say it was back in 2015 when mobile searches first surpassed desktop searches. So couldn't emphasize enough that this isn't just about being online, it's also about being mobile. But, you want to invest to make sure people can find you. SEO is another great one. If you're going to have a web presence, make sure that you're ranking, not just, when they do a local query, but when they're looking for a product or service like yours. Search, advertising, social, all of it is really critical to making sure that making sure that consumers know about you.
I think that's a great answer. And, one of the questions that a lot of small business owners have is, what's the difference between working with a company like Kabbage, a lender, and borrowing from a bank? What's the difference?
Yeah, it's very different. First of all, it's really about speed. So the way I like to think about Kabbage, and the way I explain it to my friends if they ask what Kabbage is there's two pieces that make it unique. One is the technology and the experience that it offers, and the other is the way it's evaluating small businesses. And both those pieces are kind of the opposite of what you're going to find with traditional lenders. So First Kabbage is an automated online platform. Everything is done online. And what that means is that in 3 easy steps, and literally within minutes, most businesses can find out if they can qualify for a line of credit up to $250,000. So it's quick, it's easy, it's all online. And then the other piece of it is how we evaluate businesses. So, you give us permission to have connections to your business data. And we're looking at very different data sources than a traditional lender. So we're not just looking at your revenue or your bank account or your tax returns or your credit score, but we're evaluating you on a lot of new and different criteria. So you can connect everything from kind of your QuickBooks account to your Google Analytics account to your Facebook account. So we're looking across a number of dimensions to decide if you're able to qualify for funding. And that's a really big difference for a lot of small businesses. So it's both speed and how we evaluate the business.
That's amazing. I had no idea. I'm so happy I asked. I'm so happy you shared. So Michelle, before I let you go, what is it? The question I want to ask is, what is one thing you know for sure about small businesses and what's possible for them if they're investing in their marketing?
One thing I know for sure. That's a hard question. I don't know that I know anything for sure. What I know is, in talking to many small businesses over the years, if you ask them what, is top of mind for them or what keeps them up at night, kind of what's the number one thing they care about, inevitably every small business will say they want to find customers in some way, shape, or form. And that's because, everyone's in business for a reason. They have some product or service that they need another consumer or business to engage with. And then if you want to find customers, you have to invest in reaching out to them. And again, it's what I said before, you want to make it easy for them to find you. And once they find you, you want to put your best foot forward. And there are certainly companies or businesses that don't advertise. They rely solely on word of mouth. And there's nothing wrong with that. You're going to get a different clientele, usually different quality with word of mouth. But those people who are coming to you still need to learn about you. And you still want to have a brand and a presence so that they can do that and so that they can understand who they are even before they meet with you. So I would say it's critical to invest in your business, no matter what kind of business you have, no matter if you rely on word of mouth or other means to find customers.
Well, thank you, Michelle.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So there you have it. Another really interesting video podcast on Bizapalooza Chat, this time with our friends over at Kabbage, who has sponsored this show. Please check them out, KABB8GE.com. Follow them on Twitter at Kabbage Inc. And definitely invest in your marketing. Check out the blog post and the link below where I give you all kinds of ideas on exactly how to do that, how much it's going to cost, how hard it's going to be, and where to go for help. Join us again next week on Bizapalooza Chat.